was hard to find one.
But you found the right one, my friend.
Yes, sir. What they argue is you can't negotiate with someone who won't negotiate. Well, I'm sorry. Look at what Obama did. I mean, he campaigned all year on $250,000.
Right.
He went to $450,000. Republicans got Joe everything they wanted on the estate tax. Big deal for them. He was willing to do COLAs. He was willing to do means tested on Medicare. Now, that's not as far as most Republicans want to go, but that's not someone who is unwilling to negotiate.
I don't think he's unwilling to negotiate, but Andrea, he's serious, and Bob Woodward's coming in later on. I thought Bob Woodward painted a devastating portrait of the White House's inability to negotiate with members of Congress, and we saw once again during this crisis the president unable to speak to other human beings and having to call Joe Biden in saying, fix this for me. How many times has that happened?
Well,
where the president at the last minute pulls back and says, you know, I can't do Joe, go. I mean, once again, Joe Biden, it's like, I think they have Biden up at the Naval Observatory, like in glass, and they have a hammer that says, in case of budgetary emergency, break glass. And they always break the glass at the 11th hour. Biden goes in and does it. Why is it so hard for the President of the United States to do that?
Why is it that no one has ever been invited over to the White House or to Camp David in between these crises? Why are there no sort of management of the relationship? Democrats as well as Republicans, committee chairmen from the Senate will tell you that they have never been over.
A lot of people that watch say, oh, you're picking on the president. Men who I like, a man who I respect, a man who I think could be a great leader because he's a very likable man, very engaging when he chooses to be. But explain, this isn't just Republicans crowing. It's Democratic committee chairmen in the Senate saying, he never calls us. He never talks to us. I mean, again, we can't reveal their names, but these are like the senior leaders of the Senate saying the guy just never reaches out.
I bet right now, if you checked, unless something has changed dramatically that I don't know about in the last 4 weeks, I bet you that Harry Reid has never been to Camp David. Never been to Camp David. The leaders, the Democratic leaders, have never been invited up for any kind of schmooze fest. This is not what he does. And you see what this president does in whatever spare time, the little that he has, it's to be with the people with whom he is comfortable, the old friends, the Chicago friends, the campaign crowd. He does not want to spend any of his personal time investing in these relationships.
He's a politician who doesn't like politics.
Well, right. And
about the person.
Other than not liking politics or politicians or Washington, D.C., he's perfect for the job. But, you know, my friend Craig Shirley always likes to say that this friendship between Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill was overblown. That said, they did have a personal relationship. They did talk an awful lot, and there is no way that the Social Security deal in 1983 would have gone anywhere if Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill didn't trust each other as men. That's not going to happen with a president who stays isolated. And I hope for the good of the country, for the good of him, for the good of his legacy, things change over the next couple of years.
You're absolutely right. And I was there for the Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan years. And they weren't close. They weren't warm. There wasn't great feeling. But they worked together. And they always worked together.
And they trusted each other.
And if one gave his word, the other one knew he could trust him. And
is that what happened with Biden and McConnell? Because Biden and McConnell have never liked each other. They don't like it. I mean, they've had a long,
like each other.
Rocky history, but they trust each other, don't they?
You deal. You say, you know, who can make a deal here? I mean, I'll give you one example. They were going and they were having a big fight over the aforementioned estate tax.
Right.
And the administration was adamantly opposed to a more generous estate tax, which only goes to the very richest heirs. And McConnell says, okay, Joe, that's great. Let's have a vote. You know, we'll just vote on the floor. Because Mitch knew he had the votes, because Mary Landrieu, Max Baucus, and some Democrats who are big contributors also.
And by the way, nobody knows how to count votes better than Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. Right.
And that's another thing, too.
Right.
Again, the president not knowing the system can't have these discussions, whereas Joe Biden knows.
Oh, yeah.
If Mitch McConnell tells him, let's have a vote. Joe Biden knows I lose that
with
vote.
With the possible exception of Dick Durbin, he doesn't have any confidence on the Hill. There's no one that you could talk to. Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan had people. Ronald Reagan could call Paul Laxalt.
Right.
And say, hey, you know, what's really going on? And Laxalt would give him, you know.
And the strange thing is that this president was served at least for 2 years with them. By the way, a teeny little footnote here is that I was not too long ago at a dinner where Tip O'Neill's son was paying tribute to Jerry Ford after receiving a reward from the Ford family. And he said, my father, Tip O'Neill, liked Ronald Reagan. He loved Jerry Ford.
Yeah.
I mean, there were relationships in Washington that really backdated.
You know, you said the president worked with the Senate for 2 years. He did not like it there from the very beginning. And I remember the story of Reid calling him in saying, you're never going to be a good senator. You don't like it. Why don't you run for president? And he said a couple other things we won't get into. Michael